I woke up to the worst headache of my life, like my skull had been split open and filled with static. The sunlight pierced through a half-closed curtain, slicing across my eyes. I blinked, groaned, and reached for my phone. But it wasn't on the bedside table. Actually, this wasn't even my bedside table. The sheets weren't mine. The smell of the room wasn't mine. And the shirt I was wearing? I didn't even recognize it. Panic began to creep in as I slowly sat up. My heart pounded harder than the headache now. I turned to my side, and that's when I saw him. Lying next to me, shirtless and fast asleep, was Ryan. My husband's best friend. For a moment, I stared frozen, not breathing, not thinking, just existing in that horrible realization. My mouth went dry. A cold sweat broke out across my neck. What the hell? I threw off the covers. My dress from the night before was crumpled in the corner of the room. No sign of my purse. No sign of my dignity either. The last thing I remembered was being at the party. My husband, Michael, had stormed off after an argument. I'd had a few drinks, maybe more than I should have, but everything after that. A complete blank. I sat on the edge of the bed, trembling, trying to piece it together. Had something happened? Did we? I couldn't finish the thought. I couldn't even say the word to myself. And that's when it happened. A knock on the door. 3 firm knocks. Then a voice that made my stomach plummet. "Babe? You in there?" It was Michael. My husband. And I was trapped in a stranger's bed. Next to his best friend. With no memory of why. For a second, I thought I imagined it. The knock. The voice. But then it came again, 3 sharp, unmistakable raps on the door. "Babe? Are you in there?" It was Michael. My husband. My chest tightened. I couldn't breathe. My legs trembled beneath me. I turned back toward the bed. Ryan was still out cold, completely unaware of the storm knocking at the door. I scrambled to my feet, nearly tripping over the corner of the bedsheet as I grabbed my dress. My hands were shaking too much to zip it up. My purse, where was it? Phone? Shoes? None of that mattered now. Another knock. More urgent this time. "Hello? I just saw your car outside. Are you okay?" I wanted to scream. Or cry. Or disappear. How did I even get here? I couldn't hide the car, I couldn't hide me. I didn't even know where I was, only that my husband was just inches away from discovering me in a room that reeked of alcohol, betrayal, and shame. I shook Ryan. "Wake up!" I hissed. "Ryan, wake up!" He stirred, groaning. "Wha?" "Michael is outside," I whispered. "Right now. Get up." That woke him. He bolted upright, wide-eyed. "Wait, what?" The panic on his face matched mine. For once, he had no smug grin, no sarcastic line. Just shock. We both stood frozen, staring at each other, breathing hard. We didn't have a plan. We didn't even have the truth. "I know you're in there," Michael called again. I looked at Ryan. "What the hell do we do?" He didn't answer. Then the doorknob jiggled. And I realized we had seconds before my entire life blew up in my face. My heart pounded so loudly I could barely hear the next knock. But in the panic, something started to stir inside me, a flicker of memory. Flashing lights. Laughter. Music thumping. I closed my eyes for just a moment, and suddenly I was back in that crowded living room. The party. Michael's company party. The one I didn't want to go to but did, to support him. I remembered him ignoring me most of the night, brushing off my questions, laughing a little too hard with his female colleague. I downed 1 drink. Then 2. Then I lost count. The fight. It came back in pieces, like broken glass. Me snapping at him in the car. Him yelling. Saying something cruel, something I wasn't ready to remember just yet. Then I stormed out. Where to? Another flash. Ryan. Standing by the kitchen doorway, handing me a drink. His voice calm, his smile warm. You okay? I nodded like I was fine. But I wasn't. God, I wasn't. Then the memories turned hazier. Music. More shots. A cab. A hallway. A kiss. No. That couldn't be right. That had to be a dream. A horrible, sick dream. But I remembered his hand on my back. My laughter. My arm around his neck. I opened my eyes again and stared at Ryan, who was now half-dressed, pacing. What happened last night? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He stopped and looked at me, guilt written all over his face. You really don't remember? I shook my head slowly. I need the truth. All of it. But before he could speak, we both heard it keys turning in the door. Michael wasn't knocking anymore. He was coming in. I didn't even remember how I got out. My heart was pounding so loudly I couldn't hear what Michael said when he walked in. Ryan threw on clothes faster than I thought humanly possible, grabbed his keys, and slipped out through the balcony just before my husband stepped into the living room. I said I wasn't feeling well. I faked a smile. I made up some lie about needing air and went home alone. Michael didn't press. It was early, and he still looked hungover. But I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. And I couldn't stop seeing Ryan's face, that guilty, panicked look when I asked what happened. By afternoon, I couldn't take it anymore. I called him. We need to talk, I said. And to my surprise, he agreed without hesitation. We met in a quiet corner of a park, far from town. I didn't sit. I couldn't. Was this a mistake? I asked, eyes locked on his. Or did you plan it? He looked hurt. But not surprised. I didn't plan it, he said, after a long pause. But I can't lie to you. I've had feelings for you for a while now. My stomach twisted. So you waited until I was drunk and vulnerable? My voice was sharper than I intended, but I didn't care. He winced. No. I mean, yes, maybe. I shouldn't have let it happen. But you weren't saying no. You weren't resisting. I held up my hand. Don't you dare try to justify this. He was silent. Then softly, he added, but it didn't feel like a mistake. Not in the moment. That's when it hit me like a punch to the chest. This wasn't just a night of drunken confusion to him. To him, it meant something. And that made it worse. Because to me, it was a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I had just stepped out of the shower when my phone buzzed. One new message. From Ada, my closest friend since university. A video. No caption. I hesitated. My fingers trembled as I tapped to open it. The screen lit up with chaos, flashing lights, loud music, people dancing and laughing. The house party from last night. I saw myself in the corner, drink in hand, laughing too loudly. Michael, my husband, was in the kitchen arguing with someone. Ryan stood by the stairs, eyes fixed on me like I was the only person in the room. Then the angle shifted. Someone had recorded us. Not just dancing but me, leaning into Ryan. Laughing into his chest. His hand on my waist. My mouth near his neck. The tension was palpable, even through the screen. I kept watching. I saw myself grab his hand and lead him upstairs. I stopped breathing. The video ended with a blur of giggles and the sound of a door slamming shut. My mouth went dry. My stomach flipped. This wasn't just some accident. This wasn't something that just happened while I was unconscious. I wasn't passed out. I wasn't forced. I was Willing. And worse? I looked happy. I dropped the phone. Tears spilled. Shame burned hotter than any fire. It wasn't just betrayal, it was the realization that I did this. And now, I had no one to blame but myself. Ada sent another message. I wasn't going to show you. But you deserve to know what people are whispering about. Be careful. Whispers. So this wasn't a secret anymore? I had to act. I had to choose. Because the truth? The worst part wasn't the betrayal. It was discovering the version of myself I never knew existed. The days that followed were a blur of forced smiles and quiet breakdowns behind locked bathroom doors. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. And the worst part? Michael was acting different. Not angry. Not distant. Just calm. Too calm. He'd kiss my forehead in the morning, make coffee, talk about the news like nothing was wrong. But his eyes never stayed on mine for too long. He avoided touch. He didn't ask questions. I couldn't take it anymore. One night, as we sat on the couch, him scrolling his phone, me pretending to watch TV, I blurted, "Is everything okay between us?" He didn't look up. Why do you ask? My voice cracked. Because I feel like you know something. Like you're waiting for me to say it. That got his attention. Slowly, he set his phone down and turned to face me. I do know something, he said, voice steady. But I wanted to see if you'd ever tell me yourself. My stomach dropped. Michael. He held up a hand. I knew something was off the moment I saw Ryan's car parked outside that morning. My heart stopped. He continued, I didn't knock to talk. I knocked to test. You took too long to answer. And when you finally opened the door, your eyes looked hunted. Guilty. I knew. Tears welled up. Why didn't you say anything? Because what's the point, he asked, voice rising now. Do you know how humiliating it is to even suspect that your wife cheated on you with your best friend? I had to confirm it. So I waited. My lips trembled. Michael, I don't, he said coldly. I don't want your version. I've seen enough. You think you know everything, but you don't. Ryan isn't just my friend. He's my half-brother. Silence. The words hit me like a blow to the chest. He stood up, shaking his head like he couldn't believe he'd just said it. I trusted you with my brother. And now? I don't even trust myself for ever trusting either of you. And with that, he walked out of the room. And I realized. The damage was deeper than I ever imagined. For days, I walked through the house like a ghost. His scent lingered on the pillows, his shoes still sat by the door, but Michael was gone not physically, but emotionally. And I couldn't blame him. I had shattered everything. I tried apologizing. Again and again. Letters. Calls. Tears. He listened, but he never softened. The man who once held me like I was his world now looked at me like a stranger trespassing on sacred ground. And then, one evening, he said it quietly, but with finality. You have to choose. Him or me. But even if you choose me, things will never go back to how they were. My throat tightened. I choose you, Michael. I never wanted him. I don't even know how it happened. But it did happen, he whispered. And I'll never forget that. The pain in his voice was worse than any punishment. He didn't want me back. Not really. He just wanted to know if I'd fight for what we had. Even if it was broken. I moved out the next week. No shouting. No drama. Just quiet acceptance of a love that couldn't survive the betrayal. Ryan tried to call. I blocked him. Because deep down, I knew the truth. I ruined everything. And no matter what I chose, no one won. Not really. Just a broken marriage, a ruined friendship, and a version of myself I'd never recognize again.